Enoch Pittenger 1800 to 1856. Mary Warren 1808 to 1888. Samuel Fitch 1818 to 1904. Eleanor Bryant 1823 to 1871. Mildred Smoot 1829 to 1900. George Herring 1833 to 1918. Elias Pittenger 1843 to 1907. Thomas Trammell 1844 to 1910. Harriet Wells 1845 to 1918. James Herring 1856 to 1931. Mary Fitch 1858 to 1942. Martha Trammell 1864 to 1898. Alva Herring 1877 to 1918. Cora Pittenger 1882 to 1963. Lawrence Herring 1904 to 1981.
Achilles Eve 1817 to 1855. John Baugh 1819 to 1904. Lucinda Higgins 1820 to 1875. Jeremiah Davis 1821 to 1905. James Doiser 1821 to 1881. Elizabeth Trosper 1825 to 1893. Eliza Kane 1827 to 1907. Martha Ramsey 1834 to 1880. John Davis 1848 to 1924. Josiah Doiser 1850 to 1929. Mary Baugh 1853 to 1939. Sarah Eve 1853 to 1942. James Davis 1878 to 1961. Eliza Doiser 1880 to 1962. Sylvia Davis 1905 to 1988.
Eli Davis 1772 to 1860. Rachel Potter 1785. Richard Segram 1798 to 1840. Margaret Lunn 1814 to 1887. James Lockridge 1815 to 1891. Anna McCarty 1817 to 1904. Jackson Patterson 1824 to 1852. Rebecca Bashirs 1829 to 1883. Emerson Davis 1830. Martha Segram 1837. Joseph Patterson 1848. Letitia Lockridge 1849 to 1901. James Davis 1860 to 1934. Stella Patterson 1870 to 1968. Walter Davis 1893 to 1962.
Thomas Duncan 1814. Anne Wilson 1817. William McLeod 1821 to 1854. Francis Edwards 1822 to 1854. Jesse Hull 1823 to 1901. Maria Williams 1826. Angeline Jacobs 1827 to 1878. Lucinda O'Loughlin 1831 to 1912. Thomas Duncan 1840 to 1916. Emily Edwards 1847 to 1936. David Hall 1849 to 1886. Laura McLeod 1851 to 1947. Robert Hull 1872 to 1918. Lulu Duncan 1877 to 1929. Helen Hall 1897 to 1959.
John Hargis 1809 to 1870. Thomas Mies 1812 to 1884. Jemima Clark 1813 to 1870. Sophia Gregg 1813 to 1870. Eleanor Holmes 1814 to 1887. Randolph Cook 1815 to 1856. Elfale Smiley 1815 to 1885. Elizabeth Alexander 1816 to 1860. Serenius Mies 1844 to 1886. Washington Cook 1845 to 1915. Sarah Hargis 1847 to 1919. Rebecca Smiley 1854 to 1930. Marion Cook 1871 to 1936. Sarah Mies 1873 to 1954. Elmer Cook 1898 to 1974.
Zebulon Brinson 1798 to 1872. Elizabeth Whitaker 1800 to 1860. John Hargis 1809 to 1870. Jemima Clark 1813 to 1870. Henry Mies 1820 to 1909. George Mounts 1820 to 1860. Jonathan Brinson 1820 to 1898. Mary Baker 1823 to 1898. Elizabeth Barnes 1824 to 1870. Martha Mies 1852 to 1932. Elizabeth Hargis 1852 to 1880. James Mounts 1853 to 1929. James Brinson 1876 to 1963. Sabra Mounts 1878 to 1942. Amanda Brinson 1901 to 1953.
William Bullock 1839 to 1911. William Burdine 1841 to 1900. Mary Adams 1844 to 1930. Nancy Cheney 1844 to 1900. James Decker 1847 to 1910. John Rash 1850 to 1920. Mary Quillen 1854 to 1900. Sarah Whitaker 1856 to 1882. Frank Burdine 1870 to 1960. William Decker 1872 to 1959. Sarah Bullock 1877 to 1947. Cerilda Rash 1877 to 1928. Perry Burdine 1896 to 1968. Nettie Decker 1900 to 1973. Everett Burdine 1917 to 2000.
Elizabeth Henderson 1839 to 1891. Josiah Ramsey 1840 to 1886. Amanda Ramsey 1840 to 1926. Elisha Renner 1842 to 1925. Mary Leanville 1844 to 1935. David Pittman 1845 to 1892. Robert Norton 1845 to 1914. Nancy Hamlin 1856. Joseph Ramsey 1865 to 1948. William Renner 1867 to 1940. Oretta Pittman 1867 to 1941. Isabel Norden 1868 to 1952. George Renner 1889 to 1960. Annie Ramsey 1892 to 1942. Lucy Renner 1916 to 1988.
Walter Davis 1893 to 1962. Helen Hall 1897 to 1959. Elmer Cook 1898 to 1974. Amanda Brinson 1901 to 1953. Lawrence Herring 1904 to 1981. Sylvia Davis 1905 to 1988. Lucy Renner 1916 to 1988. Everett Burdine 1917 to 2000. Raymond Herring 1928 to 1993. Elbert Cook 1930 to 2014. Peggy Davis 1932 to 2008. Roberta Burdine 1936 to 2000. Michael Herring 1953. Connie Cook 1958. William Herring 1981.